Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers and welcome back to Women's View on Ahlulbayt TV. You're watching Women's View live on Ahlulbayt TV. Now if you're watching before the break you would know our topic today is about the practical lessons we can gain from the women of Karbala. Before the break we briefly spoke about some of the women who are present in Karbala. We also spoke about why youngsters look at celebrities for inspiration, and then we touched upon how we can bring the women of Karbala or the individuals of Karbala as practical examples in our day-to-day. We're getting many of your tweets coming through and your emails, so inshallah I'll read some of them out during today's show. Remember that the phone lines are still open if you would like to participate in our show today. You know, we have Sister Najah Bazzy on the show, so don't miss the opportunity to send in your tweets or participate in the show, as we don't get her often on Ahlulbayt TV. So let's get straight back to our topic today. I'm your host Zahra Al-Alawi, and today with me is Sister Najah Bazzy, Hajjia Najah Bazzy, shall I say. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Before the break, we were speaking about how we can bring the practical examples in our life today, and we got an email through during the break or before the break. So Assalamu alaikum Sister Zahra and Sister Najah. I totally agree what the sister is saying. However, I feel like these individuals who are present in Karbala, or the individuals of the Ahlulbayt, don't have a certain appeal or certain sexual appeal, as they say, astaghfirullah, as the celebrities in this generation have. This is why many people, including myself, look at these individuals because they have a certain appeal that we wish to be like. This is just a point I wanted to make. Now, I said before the break, I said, you know, should we read that message out, should we not? But it is an email and a comment by the viewer, so we should address the comments coming in through. So, as the sister said, maybe they look at celebrities because they have a certain appeal that they want to be like, whereas the people from the individuals from the Ahlulbayt don't. What would you say?
I would say that's absolutely true. That while it's uncomfortable saying the word sex appeal on Ahlulbayt TV, with reference to the family of the Prophet, it's true, but they have spiritual appeal. And see, spiritual appeal, it doesn't age. But sex appeal, it ages. And so while we may, you know, look at these models, these beautiful movie stars, and they have an appeal. Well, of course they're going to have an appeal. That's why they're on TV. Because there's something about the psychology of our humanness that wants to look like that, or wants to be like that, or wants to dress like that, or wants to have the body shape like that. But that's not real. It's not. And it fades. And when it fades, and that's the role model, then that's definitely going to create in us a psychological deficiency, because we can't be a size 0 forever. We cannot be beautiful forever. We can be from the inside out, but we cannot be from the outside in. And so spiritual appeal actually, so I may be blurring the lines here, so I hope the audience understands my point. Spiritual appeal may actually be more attractive over the lifespan than sex appeal could ever be any day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's ageless, and it's limitless. And in fact, it only grows, and it grows greater, and then because of the spiritual awareness in a human being, they forever look young. They forever look beautiful in the eyes of people. But the opposite is true of movie stars and of, you know, people who have to spend so much, you know, fake time. You know, it's not a reality. And unfortunately, somehow there is something in our minds that is taken by that. There is an appeal to it. But usually the appeal is because we feel deficient in it, so therefore we strive to be that.
Yeah, I understand.
Right, and so I think it's very tricky. I think that we have to really be careful with who's going to make that decision about how I look. The person in the magazine who's banking off of my buying the magazine and banking off of the line on her name, which doesn't really do much for me except gives me, gratification for what? An hour, 2, 3?
Definitely. Do you think, I'm happy that sister emailed this question because I think maybe people do have these queries, but do you feel like we have our priorities wrong? People have their priorities wrong. Instead of trying to strive to achieve that spiritual appeal or spiritual purification, we try to achieve the physical. Do you think people have just their priorities wrong, or I don't know.
I don't think it's wrong, but I think it has to be balanced. I mean, of course, every human being desires to look beautiful. This is innate. This is a natural instinct. Everyone who looks in the mirror wants the mirror to look back. It's mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the most beautiful of all? There's something about that. We can't deny that there is a real, otherwise, people would not spend the money that they do on cosmetics, on lotions, on whatever else that they do. There is a time, though, I think that it has to be balanced, is what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to want to feel beautiful or to want to look toward beautiful people and have that tracked. But when it becomes so overpowering that, it's all about the body and less about the mind and the heart and the spirit, it's going to be out of whack. And that puts a person out of balance. And wherever we're out of balance, this is where danger lies for us. Especially young people.
Definitely, yeah. It's true. I hope that answers this question, and we do thank you for emailing in. I want to move on now to the contribution that we give to society or back to society, or how active we are within society, reflecting on the women of the Ahlulbayt. First of all, regarding the women of the Ahlulbayt, how did they contribute to spreading Islam? As we know, after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, there was a potential that the message of Islam could have terminated there if it wasn't for Sayyidina Zainab alayhi salam. So, sometimes we want to contribute back to society, or we as women want to be active, but we need that form of encouragement or inspiration to look at, to encourage us to become active. So how did the women of the Ahlulbayt contribute to the message of Islam after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein?
I think two things have to be said. Let me first say that I think for women, and for men, but since it's a show on women, I think every time has its place, and every place has its time. And that's been a famous quote, and it's a quote that I really believe in. In other words, I don't think that as women, we have to be all things all the time. I don't believe in that. I don't think it's real. I don't think it's practical. And I think it places far too much pressure to fulfill multiple roles. But when we look at the ladies of Ahlulbayt and their contributions to Islam, obviously Khadija alayhi salam, the Prophet's first wife, and the monogamous love relationship between Rasulullah alayhi salatu salam and Khadija alayhi salam, this relationship, people often discuss it as though that she was there, as kind of the treasury of Islam. In other words, he married her, for money or whatever, and that's not at all the truth. Her contribution to Islam was her stability, the way that she was the way that she believed in him, the way that she supported him, the way that, of course, she did manage, a very successful. She's so amazing. When you think about Khadija alayhi salam, one up for her all the time. We look at this incredible human being and what she sacrificed and what she gave in the way of her marriage and the way that she truly believed in Muhammad when nobody else was there to hear his message. His own family turned him out and she was there, totally supportive of him. So I think what she gave to Islam is something that we often don't talk enough about. Khadija is missing in the equation. We need to bring Khadija back into the equation of Ahlul Bayt, and we need to remember that she's the mother of Fatima to Zahra, and that we need to understand how supportive her role was to the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. So from a contribution perspective, I think what she brought was not only stability, but also recognition of women in a patriarchal society. She was a successful businesswoman, and she led with integrity. And she lost all of her wealth, and she lost all of what would be in that time and milieu. The environment was so unstable, but she still stood firm. So she gave sustainability to the message and support. From Fatima al-Zahra's perspective, alayhi salam, what I think she brought in terms of contribution to the society, well, of course, we know what she did when she took the public square. And in her famous sermon, I think that she laid the grounds for human justice in many ways. I think that Lady Zainab alayhi salam carried the message of social justice throughout the rest of her life, alayhi salam. And so I think that what they give to us, as I said earlier, it's the everyday that we need to look at as well as the big pieces. But I will tell you, and I've said this many times, had not Fatima and Zainab spoken publicly the way that they did, I don't think that I would have taken the public square. I don't think so. It's because of that lesson, because they were women who had a message, I think, that I don't want to say that they give us permission to speak, because I don't think that they would approve of my saying it that way. They created space for us to speak. And that's something that I hold very seriously. I think it's something that we need to really think more about.
Definitely, yeah.
So more women need to be part of the public sector. But every place has its time and every time has its place. There's a time to raise your children. There's a time for your spouse and your relationship. There's a time when you're a daughter. There's a time when you have to be a sister. There's a time when you're a friend. There's a time when your household is most important. There's a time for career. There's a time for... Everything has its time and its place. The secret, I think, to success for women is being able to be in that space and that time without being so anxious to move to the next space and time. You know?
Yeah.
So if your children are small and you're a young mother, be in the moment, because that's going to pass. Enjoy it. Stay home as much as you can. Put your career on hold, I believe, as much as you can, or cut back. Be with them. Take care of those things, because it's a time that will go away from you. When it's a time for your career, be good at what you do. Take it seriously. Develop it. Do something with it. When it's time for the social, the community issues, do it, and do it well, and be a part of it. But not all things can be done all at one time. I think that's something that's really important for us to learn.
Definitely, yeah. It's amazing, because we as women are not like the men, for example. We have the responsibilities of the house, looking after the husband, cooking, cleaning, looking after the children, raising the children. So I think it's quite important that you highlighted that, we shouldn't neglect our other priorities to try to so anxiously contribute or be active while we have other...
Zahra, people ask me this all the time. This is like such a common question that I get.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah. How do you do it?
I didn't do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I didn't. I did not do it. I did it as I do things in stages.
That's wise.
Because otherwise something's going to slip. And I don't like to live with regret. I don't want to look back and say, maybe I should have spent more time with my children. No. When I had my children, I quit work. I did not want to work. I had an at-home business to help sustain ourselves, but I worked at home with my kids until they went to school. When they were all in school, 8 hours of the day, then I went back to school, did homework together. I got my tests, they had their tests. My test went up on the refrigerator, their test went up on the refrigerator. We studied together, we backpacked together, we vacation together, we eat together, we sleep together.
That's beautiful.
That's what you have to do. Now that they're all older, it's time now. I have more time, when they're in their youth stages, we did youth groups. So you have to move with the stages in life.
Definitely.
But you really can't move ahead of them. Because if you move ahead of the stages in life, you're going to miss something very valuable. So we have to learn as women to be in the moment, and that's okay. But not to get stuck in it either. You know?
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the thing, is not to get complacent and
Definitely.
think, oh, somebody else is going to feed the poor. It's somebody else's responsibility. It's somebody else's responsibility to build the orphanage. It's somebody else's responsibility. No, it's your responsibility too. It's just a matter of when and how.
Yeah.
Time.
No, I think I'm so glad that you touched upon that as well, because obviously as a young mother myself, it's the whole issue of balancing work and raising children. And like you said, that I'm working from home, so I'm trying to be there as much as possible in my child's life. But for example, I know that we often get messages from people that say they're not in a financial situation to actually put their career on hold. They need to continue working to be financially stable. So in a sense, how could they, for these women that are active women or work for a financial, for a financial situation now, we're probably not in that stage, but what would you tell those women? I mean, how could they still be there for their children, still meet their priorities at home and looking after the husband and cooking, at the same time working in the outside world? How can a woman who is in that situation balance those?
Well, first of all, I think it's asking way too much of her to do all of those things. And then, the responsibility of the spousal relationship. You call it looking after the husband. It's a lot more than looking after the husband. It's looking at the husband, not looking after the husband, right? So there is a lot to that. But I don't know, perhaps I just feel very strongly that when there is a will, there is a way. And that when you make a decision, so, I mean, many female physicians have said to me, but I have gone to medical school, and I really feel for that. I went to medical school all those years. And now, I'm finally finished. And now I'm starting my family, and they're in a dilemma.
Yeah.
Because they have spent, $250,000, I don't know how many pounds that is, for medical school or whatever it may be, and they're starting their careers at maybe 30 and having children. And so they want to be home with their child, and yet they have this career. And so what I say to all of that is, you don't have to give up your career to raise your family. But there has to be balance. So that there has to be, for example, there has to be the ability to maybe scale back on work, maybe something part-time, 3 days a week instead of 5 to 6 days a week. For women, especially these days, you women are so creative. You women are, I'm amazed, and I'm honestly, I'm in awe of your generation. Because you have so much opportunity, especially now with the internet. I mean, there's so many creative things you can do. If money is the issue, there's ways to make money without having, to leave the house. There's so many things you can do. I started a medical supply company. I sold latex gloves with the kids in my car. We had it was some of the best years of my life. But a semi-truck would pull up to the house, and we would have loads of these gloves come, and I would sell them to dentist offices. I wasn't going to make what I would make in my profession. I wasn't going to make an extraordinary amount of money, but at least it was enough to help out with the bills and to tie us over. And so you do that for a few years. And that's what I'm talking about, readjusting the priorities. Because in the readjustment, so if you know that you're a mom and you want to be able to see your child's developmental stages, you don't want to give those over to even their grandmother, you want to be there, you want to be present for that, then you have to get creative about another way to help.
Yeah.
And I think it works. I think once you decide that you're going to do something, in anything, I don't care what it is, once you mentally, cognitively decide, I'm going to make this work, it works. I really believe that. It's something about the energy fields.
Yeah.
It's like the universe conspires in your favor.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, I think that's interesting to say, because we do often get women approaching us and with posing the same questions as well. How do we manage to do everything at once? But I think that's correct. We shouldn't try to overload ourselves and then miss our children growing up.
I think it's very difficult because they really need those I'm a firm believer, this is going to turn into a mother-child show, but I'm a firm believer that from the time of birth to the age of 5, maybe it's because I'm a nurse, and that is like those developmental years, you make the personality of that child is who he's going to be or who she is going to be for most of the rest of their life. Okay. So it's a question of who's feeding the information. What do you want that child to learn? Do you want them to learn to walk, talk, act, behave, mannerisms, so on, so forth? It's all developmental. So who's going to give them that? Well, so for myself, I'm somewhat selfish, perhaps. That was going to be me. I didn't even want my mother or my mother-in-law, even though they enhanced the experience. But I wanted to know. I wanted to be there for every part of it. So yes, I did have to change. I had to, architect a new way for my household to be able to survive. And so there's a will, there's a way to do it. I really believe that. Allah provides. I mean, He's very generous. He helps out. And I think you just have to believe that it can work.
Definitely, yeah. I think we've swayed towards the mother. No, but I think definitely we should do another show on the mother and children and raising kids. I think it'll be a beautiful topic. We'll for the audience, we'll get Najah on that topic soon.
So let's go back to Ahlulbayt. They're beautiful families.
Yeah. No, alhamdulillah. But no, I think the points you mentioned, I'm so glad you did, because I think many of us sort of, especially as busy working women in this generation, we often forget about the whole being there in a moment. Going to the Ahlulbayt in terms of contribution, I think you mentioned key examples like Sayyid Zayn alayhi salam, Fatima Zahra and Khadija, who contributed not only to the society around them but also to Islam. They contributed to Islam with their speeches, with their the way they were active. Now, you've given speeches for many generations, for many years, I mean.
It's been many generations now to Zahra.
Sorry, we've been talking about generations, the word generations is
been generations.
But, no, but seriously, a lot of women have seen your speeches, and I think you've been very active. So what, have you, as a speaking woman, as a woman who is a public speaker or has contributed so much to the community around her, we often get a lot of individuals coming forward and say, Najah Bazzy in our community, she's like the mother of us. Have you faced any obstacles, as if people want to take the same path? Did you face any obstacles? Is there any challenges in your way? What advice would you give from your experience as being active and as contributing so much to society? What advice would you give?
So here's my golden nugget piece of advice. Somewhere along the line, I stopped asking Allah to give me what I wanted. And I began to ask Him to give me what He wanted. And this was a huge paradigm shift, both in my dua and in my life. Okay? Yeah. So, because the things that I thought I wanted and I aspired to, I realized that they may not necessarily be the things that He wanted. It may not be my path. And so I needed to try to figure out how to connect whatever tools He may have given me and make them work in His way. And so, I mean, alhamdulillah, I want to say something. I don't see that I'm active. I don't know, this is such a funny thing to me. Because people say, how are you so, I don't get it. I really don't. I'm being, honestly, Zahra, I'm being so sincere with you. I don't see that I'm active like others see that I'm active.
Yeah, we do.
I just see that it's normal. So, I mean, your mother needs you. So, if your mom needs you, you go take care of what your mom needs. If your father needs you, you take care of what your father needs. So Allah first, and then, my parents, because that's top billing. And then my husband and my kids. And then everything else. But I never lose track of the order. And anyone who knows me knows I switch my schedule around on a daily basis 6, 7, 8, 10 times. It does not matter what I'm doing. I go where I'm needed and where I believe Allah would want me to be. So I have learned, I think I learned it in the kitchen. I say this and people laugh at me, but I'm very serious about this. I was raised in the kitchen, so this is a note to all mothers. Raise your children in the kitchen, because you know, you learn to multitask in a kitchen.
Yeah.
You learn so many things as a child, how to do this, how to cook, how to maneuver, how to manipulate, how to, in a good way, how to multitask so many things, and you're still having fun, right? Because you're with your mom or your dad and you're learning these things, boys and girls. There's so much to learn there. It's a little school of its own. But I grew up multitasking, so I know how to multitask. So my husband traveled, and you know, I took care of the kids and my family. But I moved in stages, so I don't know how to answer that. So when my children were 13, 14, there needed to be a youth group. So let's do a youth group.
Wow.
So something pushes the need. There was the need for Muslim healthcare. There was no information out there about how to care for Muslim patients in the United States. Well, I'm a nurse. I'm a Muslimah. I know how to do this. I was taking care of Muslim populations of people. So let's teach. How do you care for, you know, what are the Muslim healthcare practices and beliefs? It's like that. So people need to be fed. People need to be clothed. There are women who are widowed and divorced with orphans. Allah says, take care of the widowed, the orphan, the divorced, So, yani, it's not to me a position of activism. It's just a position of responsibility. I don't see that I'm doing anything that anyone can do what I'm doing. The difference is I do it. That's the difference.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, I choose to do it.
We'll come back to that in a second. I do have to go for a break, but inshallah, I want to touch upon the points that you mentioned. So inshallah, we'll be back. For the audience watching at home, you are watching Women's View live on Ahlulbayt TV. A very heartfelt conversation here. So please don't go away, and I have to end off now, but please be back in a few seconds, inshallah, where we continue the topic on practical lessons from the women of Karbala. So see you in a few minutes. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.